will also be the last session of the Pulse in its current format. When we started this program in the fall of 2021, we envisioned a way for folks around the region to connect around a series of virtual lectures covering a variety of ecosystem-wide topics. It's been exactly that, with fantastic speakers covering topics from whales and birds to forage fish and kelp. A lot has changed both in the world and within each of the four organizations involved since that time, and as a result, this will be the conclusion of the program as a four-organization partnership. We wanted to thank each and every one of you for being involved and look forward to continuing to engage with you in a variety of ways going forward. We understand the Salish Sea School does plan to continue with a version of this program, so stay tuned for additional details on that from them. In the meantime, Cindy and I were chatting, and we thought it was very fitting that one of our final speakers tonight in this series is the same speaker who joined us for our very first episode of The Pulse back in 2021, that one on the beluga whale in Puget Sound. But Cindy, I'll turn it over to you to do our speaker introductions.
All right. Thanks so much, Monica. And I'll just add, this is definitely not the end of collaboration with our organization. So stay tuned for other things coming up. So tonight's speakers are Gary Heinrich and Stephanie Norman of the Central Puget Sound Marine Mammal Stranding Network. And they're going to provide an overview of elephant seal biology, natural history, and conservation with a bit of storytelling about our beloved local Whidbey Island elephant seal family. So Gary Heinrich is the response coordinator and investigator for the Central Puget Sound Marine Mammal Stranding Network. He is a former middle school math and science teacher and instructor for Whidbey Watershed Stewards. He also taught marine science at the Ocean Institute in Dana Point and the Los Angeles Maritime Institute. And he worked as a marine mammal keeper vet aide at the Marine Mammal Rehab Facility at Marineland of the Pacific. He currently holds a 200-ton master's license and works part-time as a captain on West Coast tall ships. Dr. Stephanie Norman is a veterinary epidemiologist and wildlife veterinarian who has been involved in the field of animal health, disease, and conservation for the past 20 years. She received her Doctor of Veterinary Medicine from Texas A&M University, her Master of Science in Epidemiology from the University of Washington, and her PhD in Wildlife Epidemiology from the University of California, Davis. Her areas of interest include the impact of climate change on marine wildlife and their diseases, disease surveillance, risk factor studies, conservation of marine species, and ecosystem health. So as Monica mentioned earlier, Stephanie Norman was our very first speaker for the Pulse, so we're very happy to have her back and excited to have Gary join her as well to talk about elephant seals tonight. So as always, please feel free to put your questions in the chat and we'll get to those at the end. And at this point, I will turn it over to Gary and Stephanie to get started whenever they're ready. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Yeehaw. Well, thanks for having us on to talk about these elephant seals. I knew a little bit about them way back when, but they're quite, when I'm out on the ocean sailing, you don't really see them too much. I did run across them a long time ago down at Santa Cruz Island, Santa Rosa Island, and Santa Barbara Island on their little, rookeries out there. But it took these our elephant seals here on Whidbey Island for me to really get into what they are, and they're fascinating animals. They're just fascinating creatures. So every time I read about it, I learn something new. So this is kind of a culmination of what I know so far, but I don't really know it. I'm not a biologist, I'm just fascinated by them. So here we go. That picture you see there is our latest birth. His name is Emerson, and he is currently, we don't know where he is, but he is tormenting the people in Victoria as of the last few years. So there we go. Why is my screen not working? Why am I, okay, what am I doing wrong? It's not advanced scenes. Oh, there we go. Okay. We got four main pinnipeds up here that we see most often. And again, the one we're going to talk about tonight is our northern elephant seal. Cute, aren't they? Just somebody you want to take home to mom. Let me get my screen out of here. Okay, there we go. the northern elephant seal, and they do have southern elephant seal cousins, but the males can get 2 tons. They're big and 14 feet long, and we currently have one that's getting close to that up here in the Sound. Females not nearly as big, but they still are quite large. 14, 20 years. Again, that's estimated on what's going on in their colonies. We don't know about the ones up here, how long they'll be around. Male elephant seals are really noticeable by this pronounced proboscis. And it's also what's they use to make their vocalizations, especially when they're mating or trying to fend away another male. Their diet: invertebrates, fish, squid, deep water stuff. They won't turn down a meal near the surface, but they spend most of their time deep water, and so that's their main food source. They're the largest of the true seals in the northern hemisphere. They're only second in size to their cousins down south. The size difference is quite enormous between the male and the female, 3 times their size in some cases. Most polygamous of mammals, I don't know. I've read stuff somewhere between harems of 100 to 1,000, which is pretty amazing. History-wise, they were almost hunted to extinction. This is, again, one of the fascinating things about these animals. A lot easier to kill them than it is to catch a whale. And so they were killed again for their fur and their blubber. Their oil quality is only second only to the sperm whales, and one large adult can yield up to 200 gallons of oil. So you can see why they were hunted like they were. By the end of the 1880s, and almost in the 1900s, they were thought to be extinct. Then they discovered a small colony down there in Mexico, Guadalupe Island. The number of animals were somewhere between, I've seen numbers as low as 4, but somewhere in the 4 to 100 range of animals that were left on that group. Protected by Mexico in the early 1900s, and their population has done quite well since then. All northern elephant seals come from that group, which means they have a lack of genetic diversity. And, we know what that means in other species. We haven't seen anything yet that I know of that shows that happening in these northern elephant seals. These are some of the colonies that are along the California coast, the rookeries they're called. Again, mainly on the California coast and in the Channel Islands of California, and still in Mexico, but we're finding that there are less and less of these animals in Mexico. They seem to be moving north. These are the rookeries in California: Point Reyes, Farallon Islands, Ano Nuevo Island, Piedras Blancas, and the Channel Islands. Their range, as I said, is that area, eastern, central, North Pacific, Alaska, and Mexico. They're one of the longest migrations. They're up to 13,000 plus miles, but their migration is kind of split into 2 parts. They migrate and eat and do what they do and forage, and then they come ashore to breed, give birth, and then they go back in the water and mess around for a few more months, and then they come back out to molt. So this is a big migration, but it's split into 2 parts. Spend 80% of their life in the ocean. And of that 80%, 90% of that is underwater, which I find, as I study them more and more, how do you spend that kind of time underwater? I call them their extreme athlete. I mean, everything they do is to the extreme. There's nothing small about it. The competition between themselves, especially the males, the risks that they take to their bodies, the stress on their body is all extreme. Again, they leave the water only to do these three things: breed and give birth, and that's usually in the same time frame, and then molt. And when they're out of the water, they do not return, and they fast the entire time, sometimes months at a time, or at least weeks. At sea, they sleep only 2 hours a night, and these, they call them power naps, about 10 minutes at the time. And they get to a certain depth and they literally go into a REM sleep like we have for about 10 minutes at a time, and they just kind of drift down. They've actually discovered some actually still sleeping on the bottom. Yeah, amazing animals. Again, I said one of the longest marine mammal migrations. And this is something that no other pinniped does. They molt where they lose their entire layer of fur and skin out just in this one period of time. Could be 5-6 weeks, could be less. They dive deeper, swim farther, and hold their breath longer than any other seal. Polygamous, as I said, some of their harems are 100 animals, some can be smaller, and the bulls will fight for dominance. It's can be a bloody battle, and rarely, but at times, one of the animals could get killed. The biggest danger to the pups, because they're right around with that, and these two males are going at it with absolutely no consideration for what they might crush. So some pups can be killed in these battles. This is a video of two northern sea lions in Ano Nuevo. I hope you can hear the video. That's a pup trying to get out of the way.
Gary, we can't hear the video. I forgot to tell you to click the little box to make sure that that happens when you do videos.
Where's the little box?
You have to do it when you first start the PowerPoint. So if you have other videos with sound that you want to play, you can just like stop sharing and reshare.
Is this that audio over here? Do you see my screen?
Oh yeah, I don't know. I don't think.
Let's see. Well, that's a
I don't
bummer.
think so. I think you have to click the little box when you first start sharing. So if you
Okay.
want to stop sharing and go back, you certainly can.
Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to. I like the.
Yeah.
I got some audio I want to share. So stop share.
And then share again, but before you start the PowerPoint, look for a little box on the right side that says
share sound. I got it.
Yes.
Perfect. All right, here we go. Sorry about that.
No, I forgot to remind you about it.
And I am so good at this stuff. Okay, so I need to start again. Where's that button? Okay, here we go. Can you hear that now?
Yep.
Great, perfect. You see the dominant bull is on the left, and the suitor decides he has had enough. Just like that, it's over. I'm out of here. All right. So these vocalizations you're hearing, again, that sound is as a result of that proboscis, and the pups and the females don't make that vocalization. Again, these tacks, bull versus bull, is rare because when they're out of the water, they're trying to conserve their energy, mostly with the males for breeding. And, for the females giving birth, they're out of the water the whole time. So they're trying to conserve whatever energy they have. Again, they prefer to talk to each other and, bluster around. Usually one backs down in most of the confrontations. This is way more talk than action. Again, a lovely sound. Bulls actually can recognize, they've done some studies on these different colonies where they've recorded some of the bulls' vocalizations, and they're actually able to recognize the voices of bull or the sounds of the bulls that they've met and remember who they fought and who won. So they try us at times if they don't think they're going to win again, not to actually have it. Kind of a conflict of poison strategy. I wish we had that. Yeah, so I won't say anything more. Each male's voice is distinctive. It stays the same ear to ear. And the interesting part is 90% of elephant seal males never mate. These beta males are always trying, but even the females recognize the bull's voice and they have objection to these beta males, but they don't stop trying. And we'll talk about that a little later about one of our elephant seals up here and what he's doing. Again, when they're played to another colony, the bulls don't even react to bull's vocalization from another colony. And as you heard, they can be one of the loudest in their vocalizations. Just to give you an idea of what they're fighting with, that is a large set of teeth. And though they don't look so terrible on the outside, they can do some damage if they really want to get annoyed at you if you're on one of their colonies. Bears and mustelids are what they evolved from, land animals. So you can see those teeth. Talking about their predators, I wanted to bring this up because we're going to start talking about the depths they can dive to. And their main predators are the great white shark and the orca. But they dive to depths that these animals can't dive to. And mostly the great white shark can go deep. And some of the foraging areas, depths that these elephant seals go at, the great white, it can get down there. But these are two predators that really spend their time on the surface looking for their prey. Deepest recorded dive, almost 6,000 feet. And if you remember the depth of a mile, that's 5,280. That's pretty deep. Southern elephant seals can actually go deeper. And their depth records are constantly being broken. 7,000 feet was the latest I got, but then I found out almost 8,000 feet this southern elephant seal dives to. No other seal can go that far, and really just sperm whale and Cuvier's beaked whale are only two that we know can go deeper. When we talk about going down in water, we got to remember pressure. And every foot that you go down below sea level, you're adding a half a pound of pressure to every square inch of your body. And you always, at the surface, you're at 14.7. So you're already experiencing 15 pounds of pressure on every square inch of your body on your atmosphere, on sea level. So as you drop down, you keep adding that pressure. Well, I did a quick math, and at 7,835 feet times half a pound plus another 14, you got 3,500 pounds per square inch on your body. Yeah, no way there's any survival going on that level. The crush depth of a nuclear submarine is somewhere around 1,400 pounds per square inch, or about 3,000 feet. So how are they able to do this? Again, without dying, being crushed. So let's talk about their diving. Before they dive, they exhale all the air out of their lungs, completely empty. This, of course, reduces buoyancy. And if you know anything about scuba diving, it prevents any air in the lungs being forced either into the bloodstream, which would be an embolism, or in between your joints, which is called nitrogen narcosis. The reason their lungs don't, kind of like the walls of the lungs don't stick together, is because of what you see coming out of their nose. It's a surfactant, and it kind of lubricates and allows the lung to reinflate when they do breathe in the air. Their metabolism slows way down. I mean, try to slow your heart rate down to less than 5 beats a minute. Good luck. And then their blood flow to their muscles shut off. So they really only have flow to their brain and to their heart, and their body temperature drops just 5 to 6 degrees, not a lot, but they're getting ready to go down to deeper depths. Their blood is rich when they do breathe in. They absorb that oxygen into their hemoglobin and into the myoglobin in their tissues, increasing their capability of storing oxygen because they still need oxygen at those depths. They have large sinuses in the abdominal veins to also hold the blood. More oxygen can be held. In fact, 22% of their body weight is in blood. Their blood is also rich in carbon monoxide, something that kills us 10 times higher than humans. But because it does the same to us on the surface, it slows the oxygen delivery throughout the body, and we basically suffocate. For the elephant seals, it allows their body to slowly absorb the oxygen that's in their tissues and in their blood, allowing them to remain underwater and to surface less frequently. Another fascinating thing is that the recovery time on the surface is less than 5 minutes. After being down there for so long, I think one of the longest recorded dives of an elephant seal is up to 2 hours. That they can just come back, recover 5 minutes later, and then return to diving. Some more physiological adaptations. They have what's called countercurrent heat exchange. This allows them to keep their body temperature the same. And it's where the heat in the warm blood in their arteries is transferred to the cooler blood in their veins in the heart, and they're able to, maintain that body temperature at depths where, I mean, fresh water would freeze at some of the depths they're at. It's pretty cool. It's, less than 30 degrees. Vision, they have more rods and cones. More rods allows them to see shades of gray and in low light conditions. They have a structure in their eye where this light can be reflected back to the retina that allows their photoreceptors to detect this light. And they're very sensitive to bioluminescence. And at depths, we know there's a lot of animals down there that bioluminesce, and so they're able to pick it up. We also found that when we were trying to move some of these animals back into the water, we were advised they're really nearsighted. So at distances, we just look like big blobs. And so you never want to let them know what you really are up close. I've never been able to pronounce that. Vibrissae, Stephanie, how do you say that?
I think that's right. Vibrissae or vibri. Yes.
Yeah,
Vibrissae.
okay. I tried.
Or vibrissae.
Oh, I like that better.
Yeah.
That's their whiskers. Though they are really good at locating prey and navigating their environment in such dark areas down there. It's kind of like a lateral line in fish, where they pick up pressure changes in the water and they know when a predator is coming. These also do the same, and so they know when their prey is close and allows them to navigate through the waters. Turbinate process, they never drink fresh water. All their fresh water comes from the food they eat. So when they're out, they have to, and they're in the sun on these beaches, they have to conserve as much water. And so they're able to recycle the moisture as they're breathing the oxygen. Hearing is pretty amazing too. I don't know exactly how this adaptation has occurred, but the inner ear, they have a way to amplify the sound. So they actually can hear really excellent directional hearing for where their predators are and prey are, and when they're down below and don't run into things. Foraging, they eat about 40 pounds of food a day. And so they got to consume a lot. The female northern elephant seal will migrate out to a spot. They find them north of Hawaii, and they feed on the bioluminescent fish in the depths anywhere between 15 to 2,400 feet. Bulls migrate farther. They actually stayed near the continental shelf. They go up to the Aleutians and they work off of seamounts in the bottom up there. They feed on skates, ratfish, rays, and small sharks at about 1,500 feet. Another fascinating thing, a foraging dive in a day, they can dive 1,000 to 3,000 times, 24 hours a day, week after week, sometimes months at a time. It's just amazing. It's just a continuous eating cycle. Normal foraging depths in the 1,000 and 3,000 foot range, again, well below where their predators could go or where their predators normally would be. I bring this up, and Elizabeth shared this with our group up in Anacortes. They learned so much about elephant seals by putting all kinds of different sensors and arrays on them. And because they come back to the same site, they're able to take this data. And from the data, they have learned so much more about our oceans, temperatures, climate change. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. So if you're interested to learn more about it, Sentinels of the Sea, it's a YouTube video. I'd show it now, but it just goes on and on and on. It's too long for us here, but it's a great video. Oh, it's showing. I don't want to show it. Okay, so again, talk about foraging depths. It's just a comparison of our northern elephant seal, and you can see where they go to and the depths they can be, and then the predators that they have and their normal foraging depths. This comes from the UC Santa Cruz video, kind of showing you the red are the females and where they go. And you can see how the blue lines of the males stay closer inshore, so to speak, and up to the Aleutian Islands. And that's where we are right there. Birthing, giving birth. We were fortunate 3 years ago to actually watch this happen to one of our female LC elephant seals giving birth to Emerson. She gave birth, I believe, check me on this, I think it was the end of January up in Bowman Bay. Mothers will nurse their babies up to 28 days at a time, a full month, and they do not return to the water until the pup is weaned. So whatever they bring ashore, they've got to live off of. And they have to listen to that the whole time. No wonder after 28 days they say, "Kid, you're on your own. I'm out of here." Again, the mom produces about 9 pounds of milk per day, again, without eating or drinking anything. So she has to come ashore pretty healthy because she draws on her fat reserves for that milk. And it's extremely, she'll lose a lot of body weight. And as I was going to say, 50% milk fat in that milk that she produces. The pup will gain up to 10 pounds a day. So you imagine after 28 days, that pup is ready to go. But he is on his own. Pup stays on the beach for another 2 to 3 weeks, learning to swim on his own, feed himself. And that's probably when the pups are probably at most risk when they're out there in the water to predators, because they're not going deep water at that time. They also have what goes through the catastrophic molt. I mentioned that before. Only the pinnipeds do this. They are the only pinniped elephant seals that do it. And again, you can see how pretty it is. And it's very stressful on their bodies. Again, they're out of the water the whole time while this is happening, and they're shedding their entire fur and skin layer. It takes about 4 to 5 weeks for the new coat to be fully back in place. They rest on the beach and fast, and they look terrible, and they sound terrible. But again, they're not, they're just stressed, and it's best to leave them alone if you can. June and July. So I remember we talked about how we have 2 different parts of the migration. So that's when they return to the beach in June and July to do this molt. So as we mentioned before, we do have a small family here on Whidbey Island. The mom, Ellie, we've all given her names that start with an E. She started coming ashore in 2010 on the same beach in front of the same house. And and then she was coming ashore to molt. Well, in 2015, she came ashore and she gave birth to her firstborn, a male who also is living on Whidbey Island over there at Baby Island. She came ashore again in 2018 and had a female, and that's the Elsie Mae. And then another female in 2020, and her last birth was in 2021, where she gave birth to a boy. And this is all at the same location, literally in front of the same house. Elsie Mae, her second born, gave birth in 2022 to Emerson, who, as I mentioned, is up in Victoria. So Elsie always has a thing to say when we come to see her. That's our greeting. Hello, get away, kick some sand, and I'm done. Ellison is the male. Elsie Mae, second born. Eloise and Elwood. Sort of sad, we don't know what has become of those two. We did have Eloise return about a year later, but she hasn't been seen since. And Elwood, he was around for a few months, got him still stuck in a storm drain, and had to be rescued, but we haven't seen him since. Site fidelity is something that all pinnipeds have. They like to return to their areas to breed, these rookeries, or areas they find they're safe and they're protected. Ellie has returned, as I said, to that same site since 2010. Ellison keeps coming into Baby Island for the last 10 years. Elsie Mae keeps coming up to the same area in Anacortes for the last 5 years. We tried to relocate her once, and that's when we realized that that's not going to work because she almost got back to the same place before we got back there. But Elizabeth is part of that amazing group up there that keeps an eye on her, and she currently is down in Rosario. And then Emerson has returned to his place up in Victoria for the last 2 years. We haven't heard this year whether he's there or not. They've tried to relocate him, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 times, and he keeps coming back. So that could be a problem. Elsie Mae loved to make herself known in camping spots, and she went up and got some gas at the marina there, when she was here. She hates orange cones and yellow caution tape. Very curious. Checked out a dog in this car one day. But yeah, so she does present a bit of a challenge, keeping an eye on her and keeping her safe and keeping people away. Emerson's gotten more urban, and he has gone to different places in Victoria to hang out and molt because he's not there to
Normally what they do is they'll fence off.
breed
Put
yet.
signs up so that the community knows not to go near them. You don't want to disturb them when they're molting.
What? Scared? Scared?
Yeah.
Why are you scared?
So yeah, you'd be scared of that. So his problems have been that, again, an urban area. And so trying to keep him safe off the streets and away from busy people, people that are busy. And he's got the following up there that try to keep him safe as well. And this is their attempts to relocate him. So far, we don't know if it's worked. We'll see if he shows up in June or July. But one of the biggest ones, if you ever followed what's going on with the southern elephant seals, there is a seal down in Tasmania called Neil the seal.
Police versus Neil the seal.
And they get so much bigger.
Neil the seal is a 1,300-pound seal that has recently taken over a small town along the coast of Tasmania.
What are you doing?
Here we have Neil in his own habitat.
The mischievous seal went viral on TikTok for his public antics,
He broke all my signs.
including breaking signposts, laying on the road, and having run-ins with the local police.
Neil, someone lives here, mate. Neil,
Oh, this cracks
someone
me
lives
up.
here.
Neil the seal has won the hearts of Tasmanian residents. However, authorities and marine biologists warned that elephant seals should not be disturbed on land. The speed with which they can move their bulk makes them potentially dangerous when harassed.
It's amazing what the locals do for Neil the seal. See ya, my big boy. I will be back. Yes, we will be back.
Big deal. One of my friends said he's in a witness protection program right now, and the biggest fear with a male elephant seal is that they can do some damage. I mean, once they get to a breeding age, and they're cantankerous and they can be dangerous. And they've had to, in the past, when a walrus got into a town, they eventually had to euthanize it because of the danger it posed. Females don't pose that kind of danger. I mean, you could almost literally step on them and you wouldn't know, and they wouldn't flinch. Anyways, so I put together some newsletters on these different seals that we have. And if you want to take a look more at them and get more information, you can go to our website, orcanetwork.org, and check them out. Now, dangers and predators. I think I'm going to hand this off to Stephanie. And Stephanie, you need to let me know when it's time to advance the slide.
Okay. Yep, that sounds good. I had forgotten that I did the first one of these talks on the beluga, so it's nice to be able to kind of come full circle. So, you know, Gary's alluded to some of the dangers and predators that they do face. I tend to kind of look at them in a couple of different categories, you know, natural predators, and then of course human. Now they are carnivores, the pinnipeds, so they are typically at the top of the food chain or near the top, but they are, again, as Gary mentioned, they are preyed upon, and in this area of the country, they would probably be one of the food items that the big killer whales would be interested in, and also some sharks. And I know that we have, I know we have basking sharks, which those aren't typically carnivores, or they eat little plankton, but I know we have some other like 6-gill or something gill sharks that we even have downtown Seattle that live at depth, but they are potentially also predators of these seals. So, you know, some of these smaller animals, as this population starts to grow, that is something that, you know, could impact them. And then, of course, there are dangers from humans, as always. They are, as a reminder, all marine mammals are federally protected by the Marine Mammal Protection Act, and any interaction by humans is considered a violation of that act and is considered a federal offense, and certainly punishable by a fine and, you know, imprisonment. But most of the time, the interactions are going to be people that are curious, that don't hold ill will toward the animal. They're just curious. They want to get close. They want to see it, unaware of, you know, how dangerous these animals can be and how quick they are. So, you know, we try to work with the public on that. Some of the things that we do see are boat and ship injuries. So this was an animal that was injured by a large ship propeller. And there's a knife down in the bottom picture to show you the depth of the laceration of this animal. Do you remember who this was, Gary?
No, you know, I wasn't involved with
Okay.
the Stranding Network at this time, so not too sure.
Yeah, I'm trying to, he looks familiar, but anyway, that's a potential. And then we also have gunshots. Now, this is a kind of an illustration at the top of the, I don't think that those, yeah, those aren't elephant seals, but it's just trying to show you the different trajectories. And that's one of the things that we always keep in mind when we're examining an animal. You know, is this a potential gunshot? And we initially thought, or I did back in, I want to say it was January of 23, or yeah, January 23, when we started finding these dead harbor seals
Yeah.
on the beach, adult seals. And Gary's going to talk more about those cases, but we initially thought they were gunshots because of the injuries to the head. So, you know, elephant seals, they're lovable looking, but they're not the brightest bulbs in the bunch. They're not this, I don't want to put, you know, anthropomorphize, but they're not this most intelligent of the seals. They're, you know, they're pure instinct. So, but we do worry about them getting shot. There are cases when I was living down in Southern California, working in at a rehab center down there, we did have some that came in with gunshot injuries. So that's always a possibility around here. Other things that we might be concerned with are entanglements, you know, whether it's fishing gear or whether it's plastic. We definitely see that can, oops, oh, I think it's going on its own.
Oh,
Okay.
there we go. Sorry.
Yeah, so, or having lures caught, you know, swallowing of lures. We don't tend to see that as much in the elephant seals because they are deep divers. They aren't really particularly concerned about some of the species and like salmon. I mean, they will eat it if they have to, but they are more the deep divers. But certainly entanglement's a possibility.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah. So some of the other, I don't want to call them natural because they're really not natural, but we do worry about pollutants. And being a top predator, they are going to not only accumulate these or, you know, pollutants from their environment, but also from the food that they eat. And since they are at the top of the food chain, it will biomagnify. So they eat a fish at the bottom of the ocean. That fish has eaten another fish, and that little fish has eaten probably zooplankton, and the zooplankton has had some phytoplankton. So it does all tend to build up, and as they go to the next food level, the next level in the food chain, that all the pollutants that are in that prey that is then consumed is biomagnified. So by the time you get to these top predators, they can have pretty high concentrations. And we're included in that because we are considered a top level predator. You know, we consume fish and we consume, you know, other species that have been exposed to these pesticides. Some of the big ones of concern, you know, DDT hasn't been produced, at least the United States, since that was one of the reasons for the Marine Mammal Protection Act, but we still have leftover accumulations of it, particularly in the sediment. The amounts have dropped down since the 70s, but we have others that take their place, like the PBDEs. That's what's found in chemicals that are used to make fire retardants. And in fact, I just bought a new mattress the other day and opened up the plastic, and man, I could smell the PBDEs, because that's what keeps us from, you know, protects us if there's a fire, that minimizes the risk. So, but the downside is that we have chemicals that we're exposed to. Also heavy metals. So runoff is something that's a big concern too, whether it's agricultural, stormwater, you know, effluent that comes in from, you know, road surfaces. So we have drains around the sound that says, you know, caution, this goes to the ocean. And that is certainly something that they can be exposed to, as they are considered coastal animals also because they come ashore. So that's something that we have to be aware of. Certainly plastic pollution, and that's a kind of a big thing now. Not necessarily even big giant pieces of plastic that they can choke on or become impacted on, but also nanoparticles. So these are very teeny tiny particles that are just pretty much ubiquitous or found throughout the oceans now. And we also, as humans, are consuming some of the same fish that these guys eat, and we are also accumulating little tiny pieces of plastics. Now, the effects of those, you know, at least in humans, there's some thought that might cause some problems with fertility, accumulation of contaminants that are contained in these plastics. So what they are, what's happening in these elephant seals, we don't quite know, but we probably assume this is something similar. Certainly there are diseases and natural injuries. So the one on the left, this was Eloise, She was the second female born to Ellie, and these are wounds that she suffered from a coyote attack when she was still a pup on the beach. And some folks came out and treated those. So, we're looking for these type of injuries. If we ever see a female that comes ashore that's missing part of a flipper or hind flipper, then we'll know. But certainly these are possibilities. We do have coyotes that run around the shore, bald eagles. Being crushed by the males, that's a very real possibility, particularly when they're in heavy density. Maybe not so much here, but we do see that. Certainly diseases that we can see are protozoal diseases. So these would be like toxoplasma, which is the organism that we worry about in cat litter boxes, getting exposed to that. There have been documented positive cases of leptospirosis in elephant seal pups, SR3, which is the hospital, Marine Animal Hospital down in Des Moines, just south of Seattle. They had a couple of, I want to say they were juvenile or weaned pups that came in on the outer coast that were affected by leptospirosis, which is a kidney disease. It causes kidney failure, liver failure by a bacteria that's a coil. We see it a lot in our California sea lions in the area. Also very prone to having pneumonia from parasites. This worm, Otostrongylus, very, very prevalent. In fact, when they come into a rehab situation, they are automatically tested, their fecal samples tested to look for the eggs. And if they are found to have them, then they are put on a dewormer. And at the same time, they are put on some steroids because as those worms are dying and breaking down, the body recognizes or says, oh, that's a foreign protein that I see, and I'm going to mount an immune response, and that can cause very serious injury. Same thing as like treating heartworm disease in dogs. So when we do give them something to kill those worms in the heart, we have to give them also steroids to help minimize that immune response. They can be affected by lice, which are, just surface organisms. They aren't going to affect humans because every animal that's affected with lice, they are species specific. So pubic lice, that's not going to affect anyone else. It's only going to affect humans. They are also susceptible to other bacterial, viral, and protozoal diseases I mentioned. So really anything that can affect our California sea lions, our harbor seals, and even humans can impact these animals. This was it's an interesting disease. So Gary mentioned the catastrophic molt, but there are times when that molt goes south, really south. And this is something that's been around for a long time. It's been observed in all age classes, but typically seems to affect the younger animals. And instead of being like just the flaking of the skin, the peeling off, they will get really severe ulcerative, oozing, cracking skin. So I have a picture here. On the left is what we call a normal molt. So yeah, they're going to have some patches where it comes off. On the right, you will see this oozing wound. It will be purulent, so pus will come out. There'll be blood, and the animal's really, really sick. There have been many studies done on this. The complete picture is not understood as to why. There are some theories. Thyroid, low levels of thyroid. There may be some vitamin deficiency like vitamin A, contaminants. Likely this is probably a multifactorial problem. In other words, there might be some multiple things, might even be a genetic component to it, some animals, because remember, this is a population of animals, a species that is very genetically similar. So their genetic diversity may be such that it's so low that it doesn't really it hasn't been around long enough, hasn't recovered long enough to produce animals that are maybe resistant to this type of problem. So we will see it. And it's something that, if it is seen that and it's a smaller animal, it can be treated. When I was working in rehab down in California, we would bring these animals in, get them on antibiotics, fluids, and usually they would recover, not always. It just depended on how severe they had it when they were found. Again, here's normal, the top pictures, and then the bottom one, you can see it looks like someone just took a big hole punch and took it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So very dramatic.
I want to, one of the things that I know Stephanie knows a lot about is the climate change, and it's something that we've been we hear more and more about how it's affecting everybody and everything. And so the curiosity is it affecting our elephant seals? We know the population is somewhere around 200,000 animals, but they've also noticed that these animals are spreading north. And I mean, I've seen animals up here that are tagged from Southern California. The waters and the air in Mexico are getting warmer, and they've actually seen fewer since 1990 in these Mexican waters, and yet their population continues to go up. Recently, 2 elephant seals were from Southern California were up in Alaska, which was, at least up to that point, really rare. I have seen over the last 3 years, 3 different tags, animals, right by the Coupeville Ferry. They come to the same beach, and they're from Ano Nuevo. They're creatures of habit. Like I said, they are site fidelity, and they like to go to the same spots. But is that good? I mean, are their pupping grounds going to be swamped by the increasing sea level rise? Are the beaches where they're going to get too hot? As the currents, waters, and currents change, will it also affect where they go forage because their foraging fish aren't there? We do know that during El Nino years, when the Central Pacific becomes warmer, the elephant seals have had trouble finding food. Can they adapt? We don't know. But I put there at the end, one thing that elephant seals have, they don't really fear the unknown. So that might be a help. They may be able to just go right on out and, go with whatever the flow is and change. Big question. Want to thank the folks that gave us these pictures. And I always like to end my elephant seal show with this. What really happens on a breeding ground? I don't know. It just cracks me up. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. And any questions you might have, we're here.
Great.
that
Thanks so
guide?
much, Sherry and Stephanie. It was
Yeah.
great.
Do I stop share? Yeah.
All right. So if anybody has questions, feel free to put them in the chat, or you're welcome to unmute and ask them as well. We do have one question in the chat so far from Monica. She asked, while their range goes to Alaska, do we know if historically they were present in the Salish Sea?
Good question. I don't know. Elizabeth, I'm going to drop on you because I know you've researched them too. In your research, have you ever heard them to be up here?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
So I think this is further north in terms of breeding range than,
Right.
but always within the feeding range, right? Because the
Right.
males go up along the coastline. So I think these are kind of new, higher latitude breeding colonies.
I'm going to talk about Ellison because he's the firstborn and 10 years old, been hanging out at Baby Island. He was not born in a colony. This is all supposition on my part, but being that he wasn't born in a colony, he doesn't return to a colony. And we're finding since 2023 a lot of dead, pregnant female harbor seals. And he's actually been seen on a few of these cases actually trying to mate with we don't know if they're pregnant, but with a female harbor seal, and he ends up killing them, not on purpose. But the mating process in these colonies is not a kind, bring you flowers sort of thing. It's like on you bite the head and do their thing and get on. So I haven't even talked to Stephanie about this. I've been responding to, in the last 5 days, to 5 harbor seals, 3 of them pregnant, 3 of them, all of them dead, and all of them with evidence that Ellison has been in the area. So, I mean, these are males that want to breed. He's not in a colony, and so he probably doesn't have the opportunity. We don't even know if there's a colony up here. Speaking about their range, we know there's some on Race Rocks, but a breeding colony like we see in California and Mexico, don't know. We don't think there is. There's a few seals here and there. So it does pose an interesting problem as to what to do.
All right, next question. Is the ability to dive so deep driven by access to the prey available there or evasion of predators? Is this a niche that other predators don't have access to because it's so deep?
I would say both.
Yeah.
Their food is down there and there's ample food. They love squid too, and they go deep to get it. And it, like I say, the fact that they can sleep the way they do, literally floating in the water, because they're not worried about predators. Yeah, so I would say both food and safety.
Thank you. Next question. Locally, have there been strandings or necropsies within the Salish Sea? And then this next part of that is any predation events by Biggs orcas. And has anybody seen foraging by Elsie Mae or the others? And if so, what do you think they're eating locally? So kind of 3 questions there.
So yes, there have been necropsies. That one I showed initially with the dead elephant seal. I know that was done a few years ago. There was another male that we thought was Ellison down on Bainbridge Island, Port Orchard, that area last year, and it died. It was like the same size, same everything. And so Diana Lamborn from Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife necropsied that animal. So we don't know, we got tissues from it. We don't know how it's related. So I have been collecting try to get tissue samples from everybody that we can get a hold of, either skin, blubber, or fecal material, because they slough cells in there, to try to eventually get a genetic study done with some folks up at Western Washington University. The problem becomes is that there is not enough genetic diversity. It makes it more difficult to tell who's from who, because everybody's kind of the same. So we'll see if that happens. But the other necropsies were the 2 weaned animals that were found on the outer coast with leptospirosis. So not that many, but they, those animals died of lepto. So they knew that and helped with those. But as far as big animals, not very many, because there just aren't very many animals. I don't know how often they're predated upon by bigs, or any kind of transient. So I had to have to look in California, because I remember when I worked down there, we didn't see that many that were, attacked or had obvious attacks. We did see them attacked by sharks, like with shark bites. Certainly that's a possibility, particularly around those breeding colonies, Año Nuevo. The sharks, the great whites, come up there every year down in California to go prey on those elephant seals. I don't know if they take out any big bulls. I think they might be a little bit too big, but certainly weaned animals, youngsters like 1 or 2 year olds are fair game for the sharks. So up here, we haven't seen any that we can tell. You know, maybe those 2 animals, those Elsie and Elwood that were missing could have been eaten, consumed. We just
Yeah.
don't know. And we have not observed any foraging by Elsie, but didn't, was it Ellison that had the fish in his mouth, or who had the,
Actually,
So-
that was Eloise had gone down and got a ratfish, and she
Yes.
kind of got the spine stuck up in her upper palate, but she was
Yes.
able to get it free. So, yeah, that was it. Yeah, I mean they go deep, and they're down there for a long, long time. So it's not like you can watch a orca feed on the surface or something like that. So.
a lot of them leave the sound. I was talking to the people down at UC Santa Cruz, just trying to find out more information, like what, because we were trying to figure out what to do with Elsie Mae when she was destroying people's patios a few years ago. And they said, don't bother moving them because they can move right back. They travel hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles. So, but they said that, a lot of these guys will probably head out to go feed, and then they'll spend their time out in the ocean at depth and then come back in. I'm sure they may feed a little bit here. We just haven't seen it. And no one's tagged any, when we try to put numerical tags, like little flipper tags, but no one's put, satellite tags or TDRs or whatever on them. So we don't really know what they're doing here other than sitting on a beach and molting, birthing, and killing harbor seals.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, the interesting thing, I think just one thing with Ellison, we're not really sure he leaves the sound. He comes back early January. He's been seen here as late as November. And he's here a lot. I just, and like I say, he doesn't have a colony to go to. I just don't know if he's sticking around this whole year, who knows? They're writing some different rules, so to speak, these 5 animals.
Yeah.
I actually have a question that you may have already answered, Stephanie, but I was just wondering with, like for Emerson, for example, if there's genetic material on him, would you be able to tell, where his dad came from to know where Elsie Mae went to mate? But if they're genetically so similar, I don't know if that's possible.
Yeah, I'm hoping we can. So I contacted this professor up in at Western, and he's expressed interest. I think it would make a great master's student project. He said, though, the problem becomes trying to make up these genetic markers to detect. Those can be pretty expensive, and they can be hard to develop because they don't have that diversity. They're not distinct enough to be able to pick up, like you could say, it's from the Smith family. Okay, well, which of the Smiths? There's millions of Smiths. So he said that there's been one paper that's been out that was a group out of Mexico, I think, that did a genetic study on some of the animals down there. They're, toward that way, but there really hasn't been much at all as far as genetics on these guys. It's hard to differentiate them, but I'm going to see if they can differentiate, at least at a local level, who the dads were. Like, is it a California animal? Is it an Oregon? Because there are rookeries off of Oregon. Are they coming up? Who's mating with who? Are they trying to mate with their mom? I'm surprised that he hasn't tried to mate with his mother, Ellie. We had this big giant male that died, who we thought was Ellison. Who are all these people? So we are, the straining coordinator for the region, gave us the green light to be able to tag these animals. I think this is going to be one of the easier ways if we can catch them when they're pups. We just didn't do Ellison when he was a pup, but we are trying to tag animals that we haven't seen before to try to get that on there. So at least we can recognize, that's how we knew Emerson was up in Victoria, was one of ours, because he had been tagged when he was a pup. And so we're trying to be better about that. It's just difficult sometimes to get access to them.
the study at UC Santa Cruz, that is, like I say, given us so much information because they put in all these satellite tags and all these gizmos on them, and they're learning so much. So they have probably more knowledge about their animals because they've got the resources to be able to put these trackers and GPS tags and things on them. We talked about it with Jeff Harris at one time. He was thinking, well, let's tag Elsie Mae or maybe one of the pups, and never got around to it. I mean, it's expensive. I think he was saying one of these tags could be $8,000-9,000. So, yeah, there's a lot we just don't know about these animals up here.
And we've seen quite a number of them, both tagged from California and untagged in downtown Seattle. So they'll show up, right smack downtown, and people are like, what is this big thing? So we try to go down there with another stranding group, Rachel Mayer, who kind of covers King County. So we'll try to go down there, and I do have like the stuff now, the tags and the tagging pliers to do that. So we're going to really try to make sure we do that. Any new pups get tagged. Anything small, we have to be careful the size because they are big and fast. But yeah, do those.
Great. All right, we do have one other question in chat. To what extent are you interested in Salish Sea elephant seal sightings, particularly those who aren't part of the famous E family? How can whale watchers best get that info to you? So that comes from Aaron from Pacific Whale Watch Association.
Yeah,
Aaron, we want them all. All and photos. I mean, we don't know, like on orcas, there's distinctive, on grays there's distinctive marks. We don't know. I think we have a scar that's on the forehead of Ellison, and that was able to let us know it wasn't him down in Bainbridge. But yeah, I'd say any photos we can get, especially if there's any distinctive marks or tags that are able to be seen. That would help a lot because we do communicate with, when we see a tagged animal that's from another colony down in California, we do let them know so that they have some record of where their animals are going. But yeah, that'd be great. Anything you can get.
Yeah, thank you. That'd be wonderful.
Yeah, I know recently, maybe a couple months ago, I was in communication with Trevor.
Trevor, yeah.
But we were kind of giving him historic sightings like over the last couple of years. But yeah, I guess, should we just email you if there's like a real-time sighting? Okay, or what?
Please. Yeah, that'd be great. Because if Elsie Mae is seen somewhere, I mean, she has popped over to Guaymas. I think her tag number is 1285. Yeah, anything like that would be really helpful. Even Emerson, I think he would see 1289 or something. I have to look it up.
Like that.
Yep, he's 1289.
Okay. Yeah, because we do on occasion. I'll have to reach out to you after, but there's some, like there's one that's been on Protection Island for the last couple of years that I don't believe is tagged. Like, I don't know if you would want to ever try to go out and tag animals like that, but every now and then we see some that aren't, normal, like locals. So try to make sure that we get.
Protection Island's interesting because that has been a historical hotspot for elephant seals, never a big population. And they suspect it may be a little bit of spillover from the Oregon animals, but they don't know for sure. And I don't know if anyone's tried to go out there and tag, but there's been a very small number of individuals that have been there, whether it's the same one or we just don't know. There just hasn't really been, I want to say, interest because it was so sporadic up until about 5 years ago. And then it's, pups started showing up everywhere. So I think they're here to stay. I think their numbers will increase. They will start, continue to show up in inconvenient for us places, particularly in downtown. And they've been showing up in South Sound. There's been a big male down there. I don't know if he's the one that died, but down in, I think Des Moines, Tacoma's had some reports. They had to shoo one back in the water down there. So I think it's going to start becoming more and more common to see them. And I think, trying to get a handle of where they pop up, even in the past couple of years, would be very helpful because that can let us know that this is an area they like to go to, like to show up. So we can inform like people and that kind of thing. So.
Okay, cool. All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Right. Anybody have any other questions? Should we let Stephanie and Gary off the hook now? Thank you so much for all that wonderful
Yeah.
information.
Absolutely.
That was
Thank you.
really, really fun. We always love hearing about the E family. So yeah, thanks again for being here. Thanks everybody for joining us tonight and, for all of our pulse sessions. And I hope you all have